Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 Episode 16, easily the best looking episode across both the seasons and the episode of the year from a visual point of view. This episode, directed and storyboarded by Itsuki Tsuchigami, was generational. Let's break down the visuals. Make sure to subscribe. Right from the get-go, you can tell that this episode is different. Even among the array of visually unique episodes, this one stood out. The plethora of Kagenashi, aka shadowless shots, the aspect ratio changes, the stripped down, unprocessed, raw look, and the absurd amount of movement. This episode had all the pieces. This episode had a better schedule than usual. For the people who care about this stuff, this was very high up on the priority list. This entire episode was animated by 15 key animators, and only 2 animation directors and 1 chief animation director was credited, which by JJK's standards is really good. This episode was pure uncontrolled chaos. It followed the character design philosophies all while taking it a step further. Anything unnecessary was removed. Even the shadows were minimal/absent throughout this episode. This gave the scenes an unique, aesthetically pleasing look. Right off the bat, we get this insane cut, which is entirely shadowless. The cut is detailed. Sukuna's face, despite lasting for a fraction of a second, has a ton of line work. The facial anatomy is very well laid out, using a lot of lines. Also, the line art is uneven. It has these thick, inky spots, a feature visible throughout this episode. You don't come across an aesthetic like this often, but when you do, it sticks with you. Of course, the aspect ratio here is different as well. The scenes are fun to look at. We get this animated zoom with a ton of frames. Also, the background gradually blacks out, making sure the audience's attention is on Toji. Lovely drawings here. Again, the characters are so malleable. The team wasn't really trying to be faithful to the design sheets. Pretty much the entire Fushiguro fight was animated by Nakaya Onsen. This was an amazing way of visualizing Sukuna's aura. Both Toji and Megumi seem insignificant compared to him. The rabbits melt together to form this pillar of rabbit meat, which is a common way of animating a large number of objects. Even the rabbits have that thick, uneven style of outlines, which is great. Although I will say this, why not make all of the rabbits look the same? This looks a bit jarring. Both the fights were so well put together. The action storyboards were up there with the very best of season 1. Nearly every cut was complicated and uniquely fun to look at. Unorthodox camera placements, volatile camera movement with accurately timed shakes and pans, and perfectly executed cuts. The camera work was off the charts. It tracks Megumi here and cuts away when he halts, conserving the energy which is then transferred onto the next few cuts. Trust me, every single cut has something interesting going on. The smears on both the characters are minimal near the start, and the choreography is solid, although a lot of it is carried by the camera work. For example, the exchange of blows here is quite basic, but the camera cuts away just in time, making sure it doesn't feel repetitive. We get a tracking shot of a f***ing rabbit swinging on a rope. If that's not creative camera work, I don't know what is. Of course, the character animation was extremely good as well. The models were malleable and moved a lot. And I mean a lot. Constant motion can be seen. The smears are a lot more exaggerated near the end. Look how noticeable they are. And that's not a bad thing. Toji appears to have multiple arms, more than 2 that is. Now, personally I'm not too terribly fond of this particular approach, but it's really well animated. In fact, this entire sequence was one of the most competently animated scenes from this season. Even the non-action scenes follow the same philosophies. Look how loosely drawn the characters are. Their movement looks entertaining if that makes sense. Also, as always, the shadows are minimal, frequently non-existent, and the amount of movement is very large. Most of the character acting here is animated by Toshiyuki Sato, and he was basically allowed to have fun, and it shows. Back to the fight, I can't get over how good the storyboards are. They are so well put together and convey a sense of tension at all times. Also, Nakaya Onsen perfectly brings these storyboards to life. The strikes carry a lot of weight, with minimal but perfectly timed wind effects and camera shakes. The volume is so well conveyed. A sense of space and distance is established between each element on screen. And just to remind you all, this space doesn't actually exist. It's a flat 2D drawing. They play around with the camera proximity. Things move towards the camera and away from it, and their size and perspective changes accordingly. I know this doesn't sound like much. Of course, a sense of three-dimensionality is conveyed. Isn't that what anime is all about? But the thing is, scenes like these are a cut above the rest because of how well they handle these basic requirements, all while featuring intricate, complex movement. Such a cool shot, filmed from inside a car. Also, the truck is hand-drawn. Tiny bit of background animation here, which looks cool. Very dynamic storyboard work, keeps you on the edge of your seat. The general artwork throughout this episode was unique, and I can already see the quote, "Mappa ran out of budget" tweets. But think about it this way, animation is movement, and creativity exists in all forms. A heavily detailed, processed scene and a raw-looking minimal scene can both be well animated. Try and broaden your definition of what good visuals are. And this applies to both sides of the fence. Some of these drawings are extremely minimal, and as a result, they are constantly moving. Again, look at this explosion. It's a single solid color for the most part. If you eliminate the colors, most of this explosion is non-existent. It's so unique. The framing, the complicated layouts, and the consistent movement, it's so good. Such a well-executed slow-motion shot. The lightning pops out a lot thanks to the compositing. The line work on Nue is absent here, which is interesting. Of course, it's on purpose. The slow, animated zoom on Toji looks great. An animated zoom is a zoom where the object is animated instead of the camera zooming into a single frame. Also, the slow head turn is amazing. It's really well animated. The drawings are extremely consistent. Impressive stuff, especially because cuts like these tend to melt, and this arc has been struggling with these shots. Amazing stylization here, which again falls in line with the main idea behind this episode. Such a competently animated fight. The layout work was so complicated, and the scenes had such a large amount of movement. A very cool cut here. Another well-animated zoom and complicated background layering. The flickering lights are added by the compositing team, and they add a lot to the overall atmosphere. And that brings us to the second fight. This one relies a lot more on effects and large-scale background animation. Also, another aspect ratio change. The entire background here is hand animated, and the lit windows actually illuminate Sukuna. Perfect ease in here. Sukuna starts off slow and speeds up as he gets closer. Again, more of that insane camera work with perfectly timed pans and cuts. I won't go through all of them, but basically, it's not just the characters and effects. The camera movement is an essential component of this fight. This frame looks really good. It's a shame it lasts for 1/24th of a second. The smoke is animated by the animator here, while the building is a part of the background illustration. And these two elements work with each other perfectly. Also, the background is warped here, which helps with the camera movement. Every single cut is so well structured. Ridiculous bit of background animation. Everything here is hand-drawn, and the first second has a fisheye effect because regular background animation wasn't complicated enough. Another heavily stylized cut. Also, you can see Sukuna's reflection for a frame here. Most of this fight was animated by So Miyazaki, and it's insanely well animated. Miyazaki continues to follow the minimal shadows principle, which makes the art pop out. Every single shot is creative. The effects, just like the characters, are always moving. They explode, turn into liquid, turn into bullets, and later transform into literal hands. Creativity at its finest. Also, every single house here is hand-drawn. I hope you understand how absurd that is. Look at this close-up. This is what happens when you let some of the best animators in the world do what they want. The thick line work, the fluid borderline creepy character acting, and the insane drawing quality. This fight is mind-blowing. Look at this drawing. I'm literally skipping over a whole bunch of scenes because realistically, I can't edit a video that's over 10 hours long. Another spectacular cut. The background animation is heavily stylized with these calligraphy-like lines. The shapes are loosely drawn and the characters look like they belong to a different show. Even the color grading looks completely different. This is what the term movie quality means. In fact, this goes beyond movie quality. More amazing Keiichiro Watanabe-like effects animated by Ajin and Ryo. The effects here look completely different from the ones drawn by Miyazaki, but that's what this episode is all about. Smooth animation here. The shadow moving across the table is hand-drawn. The background here is entirely 2D, Sukuna's motion is animated on once, and on top of that, the effects animation is absurdly fluid and complicated. So many moving elements it's hard to comprehend. Extremely strong drawings here animated by Tsuchigami himself. The fire looks so incredibly good. Again, it's completely different from the rest of the effects. It has this picture book-like look to it. Another aspect ratio change which adds an extra layer of cinematicness to this scene. Also, insane art direction here. The background is so good. The compositing team added some movement to the pools of lava which makes it look even better. And that was the fight. A spectacular display of animation strength and creativity. This was one of the best looking episodes, possibly ever. And somehow, the next episode is supposed to look even better. That is one of the most ridiculous statements I've ever heard. I'll be there no matter what. That's about it. Did you like this video? Check out this other bit of content on screen if you did. Make sure to like and subscribe, and until next time.